Hi, welcome to this month's episode of Tea with Lisa. It's July, and this is Disability Pride Month. It is also the month students are getting ready to go back to school. So we have a special guest today from Aiken County Board of Education who's going to talk to us about special programs and kind of prep our students for getting ready for the school year. So I want to introduce my guest, Beth Taylor, and I'm going to let her share a little bit about herself and what her role is within the Aiken County School District.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So my current role in the Aiken County School District is Assistant Superintendent of Special Programs.
Okay.
So basically my job is to make sure that all of our students with disabilities get what they need.
Okay.
So within our department, we have quite a few people who provide supports to the schools. We also have quite a few people who work in our department and go out and provide services to students.
Okay.
So we have a lot of supports going out there, both to our parents, our teachers, and our students.
Okay.
As far as a little bit about me, I started in special education in college, got a part-time job doing private ABA, fell in love with students with autism.
Okay.
Taught for a couple of years, moved to Aiken in the early 2000s, and since then I have I've taught in Aiken, I have coordinated services for students with autism,
Okay.
I have coordinated instructional services for students with disabilities, and my current role in the district obviously is still in serving students with disabilities. For a brief stint there, I did provide some work for general education students in elementary schools with
Okay.
significant behavior issues.
Okay.
And one of the things that's most important about me is that I really do love working with students with significant behaviors. And
Okay.
so I'm a BCBA, and that's something that I do enjoy doing, even though the bulk of my job obviously is from an office now.
What is a BCBA?
Oh, absolutely.
If you want to explain that for
Absolutely.
us.
So it's a board certified behavior analyst.
Okay.
So a lot of times we have a lot of students who receive private autism services, and those agencies are typically led by a BCBA.
Okay.
But we also have BCBAs who provide help with behavior intervention plans in schools, make
Okay.
recommendations for evidence-based interventions in that way.
So, and every school in Aiken County has special needs programs,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Every school in Aiken County has a pretty large continuum of services.
Okay.
All of our schools have at least one teacher who provides pull-out instruction, and all of our schools have at least one classroom where students can go for what has historically been called self-contained services.
Okay, yeah.
But it's really where our students go to receive more intensive instruction. They
Okay.
might not be able to be in the general education classroom for all of their subjects.
Okay.
And it's a place that they can go for larger portions of the day.
Okay.
So the beautiful thing about the federal law, IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Act, is
Yeah.
that it requires us to individualize everything we do.
Okay.
And so if a student is struggling in English or in reading, we do some assessments to figure out exactly what those struggles are, and then we tailor services and supports to those deficits. So we could have students who simply need a teacher to check in on them once a month. But we could have students who need all of their English or reading services in a special education environment. So it really can be just about anything.
Okay. Well, can you tell us about the evaluation process? So if I have a child who's just starting school, say for the first time, what would that evaluation process look like? Or can they can be identified later on, I guess, in school, like maybe say you get in third grade by then, and then you realize there's something. So is the evaluation process the same, or is it different a little bit? Or?
So it's the same across the board, but it looks different for students who are not yet in school versus students who are in school.
Okay.
So we really love finding students who need supports as early as possible. So school doesn't start for most kids until they're 5 years old.
Yeah.
But federal law requires us to start serving students as young as 3 if they have a need.
Yeah.
And so we have a process in Aiken County called our Early Learning Assessment Team, and there's actually places on our website that you can go to schedule an appointment to have your child screened if you have some concerns. And then if there are some concerns we need to look at further, then we talk about that evaluation process with the family.
Okay.
But it's our way of trying to find students before they actually start school so that we can intervene for 2 full years before they actually have to start kindergarten.
So like pre-K, I guess like pre-K would
Yes.
be okay. So if they needed like speech therapy, that kind of stuff, that can be identified
Yes.
early before they even start school.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So
if I could speak
Yeah.
to the other part of the evaluation
Yeah.
process, which once students start school, we can receive referrals typically in 3 different ways. One, it would be like a parent saying, I'm getting worried, my child keeps failing reading,
Okay.
I really feel like there's something else going on. It could be a teacher who notices those kind of things, or a lot of times it comes from what we call our student intervention team.
Okay.
So every school has a team of people who rally around our kids, and they meet and talk about where are those deficits, what interventions do we need to put in place. And when we look at that, we put some interventions in place, and if they're not working, sometimes that means we need to go back to the drawing board and see if there's something more going on.
Okay.
And so at that point, the team will meet, they'll talk about all the information and decide, are we looking at an evaluation for an IEP? And if so, we get consent from the parent. Parent consent is required. We cannot do a formal evaluation on any child without parent consent.
Okay.
And we have 60 days to get that done, to evaluate that student. And at the end of that, we'll discuss, are you eligible, or are you not eligible?
Okay. And there's no additional charge for any of this stuff?
Absolutely not, no.
All right, good. Well, I'm sure that's something parents might have a question about. Do they have to pay extra, for extra services and stuff? So, well, could you briefly tell us what services are available for students? Like, kind of, however you want to break that down for us.
Sure, and I think that's a hard question to answer because IDEA requires us to individualize everything.
Yeah.
So technically, we have to provide any services that a child needs to access and make progress in their education. So the most common ones that you see and hear about are special education teachers, speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, counselors. So, but it runs the gamut. So we we have many more services in our IEPs, but those are some of the most common.
Okay, yeah. So you talked about students with educational needs. What about students with functional needs? Can you address that for us?
Absolutely. So IDEA requires that we look at students' both academic and functional needs. And again, functional needs can be a variety of things. It can be behavior, social skills, daily living skills. It could be their fine motor skills. It could be any of those kinds of things. So we are required to provide specialized instruction to students who have deficits in those areas. So it may be a student going to a special education teacher for social skills instruction. Maybe they need some help with anger management. We do some lessons and some practice around that. For our students who need more daily living skills activities, we might be teaching them how to operate a washing machine or to cook on a stove once they get to our high school. So it really just depends, again, on the needs of the student, but we do address both those academic and those functional needs.
Okay. Well, how does the district ensure that teachers and staff receive adequate training in order to support students with disabilities?
So our district provides ongoing training to our teachers in a lot of different areas. Obviously, in the curriculum and the instructional practices we use, we provide training there. But we also have to provide training to our teachers on all of our systems. So obviously, every state is different. In South Carolina, we use a system called EdPlan SC, and that houses all of our IEP development software. So a lot of the training we might do with teachers is making sure they know how to use the system, making sure they stay compliant with federal law, and just making sure they have an all-around holistic picture of the area of students with disabilities and IDEA, so that they're providing both the services and doing the correct paperwork.
Okay, and so every teacher kind of goes through that process, no matter what.
Absolutely.
They teach. Okay.
And we also have specialists that come out of my office that go out and actually provide coaching and support to teachers. So if they're having trouble navigating any of this, we do have people to go out into the schools and provide that direct support to them.
So do new teachers get a little bit more than a teacher that's, say, been there 10, 15, 20 years?
They do. We try to tailor our support to what the teacher needs. Our specialists are in the schools every week, so they are able to touch base with teachers. So if you have a veteran teacher who's kind of encountering a new problem, they can help that teacher. They can also help the brand new teachers. In Aiken County, we actually provide a week of instruction and orientation to all of our new teachers, and we are able to tailor that to our teachers who have students with IEPs, so we can make sure we start them off on the right foot.
Okay, because I figure a new teacher probably has, they have enough to try and figure out and process and learn anyway, and then throw all that into the mix too. So
Absolutely.
well, so as far as an IEP and a 504, I know sometimes there's some confusion about those. So can you kind of break down the difference between an IEP and a 504?
Sure. So a 504 plan and an IEP, all of those students fall under the federal law of ADA, so Americans with Disabilities Act. It's kind of like this really big umbrella that covers all the things from the time you're born to the time you are no longer here with us. So ADA is what a 504 plan is based on. So if you qualify as a child with a disability or an individual with a disability, in a school system, the 504 plan is the document that tells all the people in the building that work with you what you need to be able to access your education. So it's really about those accommodations and those things that you need to make sure that you can come to school just like anybody else. So a type of student that might be on a 504 plan could be somebody who has severe diabetes. So if I need to leave class on a regular basis to get my blood glucose checked, that might be in my plan to make sure I have time to come back and make up my work. If I have severe migraine headaches and I'm unable to complete work one day because I have to go take my medicine or lay down in the nurse's office for a few hours while my headache subsides, I might need extended time to finish some of my assignments. So those are some good examples of some students who may qualify for a 504 plan, but would not meet the requirements to get an IEP. So an IEP covers the same type of situation. It's a child with a disability, but it is so much more cumbersome, so much more intense, and it offers so much more than a 504 plan would offer. And one of the key qualifications for needing an IEP is that you require specialized instruction. So both the 504 and the IEP are written to allow students to be able to access and make progress in their education. But that IEP says, I need more than just some extended time. I need more than being allowed to leave class to check my glucose levels. I need to be taught something differently than what everyone else is being taught. And so that means you would get an IEP instead of a 504 plan. In the school system, you cannot have both.
That was my next question. Can you have both an IEP and a 504?
You can't have both because it's actually a question when you first write a 504 plan. Before you even agree that the child needs one, you have to rule out that they need an IEP. Because a 504 plan doesn't dig as deep and doesn't offer as much. And so we have to really make sure that that very first time we're finding a child that needs some help, that we're making the right decision, that we're saying you need this specialized instruction. Now, we do have students who need specialized instruction, make great progress, and then still qualify as a student with a disability, but no longer need specialized instruction. And at that point, they may move from an IEP to a 504 plan. So it's always an option on the table, but it's not something you can do both of. And you wouldn't need to do both.
Okay. Well, and are students allowed to participate in IEPs?
Yes, we really welcome and encourage that from as young as is appropriate for that child to participate. We definitely want our students, as soon as they're able, to start coming to their meetings.
So I don't know if it was like middle school level is, where they start getting invited in. I didn't know if there was a certain age level or grade level.
So federal law requires us to start inviting students to their IEP meetings the year they turn 13. And from there to the end of their school career. So that's when it's legally required, but we certainly would want students to participate sooner than that.
Can you describe the process for developing an IEP? What does that process look like?
Sure. So I think one of the things that's important to talk through with this is really what the parent level of involvement is in the IEP process, because I think it can get confusing and feel like parents don't have a lot of control or don't really know what's going on. So once a child qualifies and is deemed eligible for an IEP, which means that they both have met the qualifications for one of the 13 disability categories and they require specialized instruction, we then have a meeting to develop what's called the initial IEP.
Okay.
But before the team can sit down and even talk about that initial IEP, the parent has to sign consent for services.
Okay.
That is the only time for the rest of this process that the parent has to give formal consent.
Okay.
So if you remember when we talked about the evaluation process, we have to get consent to test the student, then we have to get consent for initial services, but from there, every subsequent meeting about that child and their services becomes a team effort.
Okay.
We are required to invite the parent, but obviously we cannot make parents come to the meetings. But we want our parents to come, we want our parents to participate, but it really is intended to be a team decision where everybody has a part and everybody is discussing the strengths, the weaknesses, and the needs of the students that we're discussing.
So who would typically be at an IEP meeting? Obviously the special education teacher, maybe the student, hopefully the parents. Who else would be at the table?
So federal law also requires that we include a general education teacher.
Okay.
And it also requires that we include what's called an LEA representative. So it's the local education agency, which for us is Aiken County Public School District.
Okay.
And Aiken County School District designates their school administrators, so either the principal or the assistant principal would be as the LEA representative.
Okay.
And that person acts in the way to make sure that whatever the IEP team comes up with can actually be implemented. That's their role.
So you mentioned who all is at the table as far as staff and stuff. Who else could be at the table, or what's that look like?
Sure. So again, IDEA requires certain people be at the table, and that is really anybody that is in that child's IEP. So it could be a speech-language pathologist, it could be the occupational therapist. For a student who needs to be evaluated or reevaluated, it could be the school psychologist. So our obligation as a district is to make sure that anybody that is providing a service inside of that student's IEP is at that table. In addition, parents can invite anyone they want. They can bring grandma, they can bring an advocate, they can bring their neighbor down the street. We are not allowed to give any information to other people other than the parent, but the parent can certainly bring anybody else to the table to be a part of that meeting and provide that support that they need.
And I know Walton Options has in the past, we've had parents call and ask, could we come to an IEP meeting as an advocate for the child? So that's something we have done and we still do now. So if a parent needs an advocate to come, we're more than happy to do that on Georgia or South Carolina side, so we can go either way. So I just wanted to ask you about that. So how do you ensure, or how can parents track their students' progress? How does that look?
Sure. So again, as part of the law, the IEP team has to determine how often progress will be reported to the parents on the goals written in the IEP. And so what that looks like is whatever that determination is. A lot of times it's quarterly, just like report cards. So whatever that determination is, the teacher will then report progress to the parents using what we call the progress report. And so the parent can look at that progress report and look and see where their student is making progress, see where they might be struggling. And this is a report that's in addition to like the typical grades that would come home on the report card. And sometimes that progress report triggers us to say, hey, the student has mastered a lot of goals. We need to meet to add some new ones. Or the student is really struggling with some of these goals. We need to meet and see if we need to change something. So the progress report is not only good for our parents to see where the student is making progress, but it's also good for the team to see if we need to make any adjustments.
And so an IEP or a 504 could be adjusted during the school year. It's not once it's done beginning of the year, that's how it is to the end of the year. So it can be adjusted.
So we're required to meet on both documents every year. Make adjustments as needed every year. But a parent, a teacher, any member of that IEP team or 504 team can call a meeting at any time to make what we tend to call those special reviews, but really we're meeting to determine if the document needs to be amended. So we don't necessarily start from scratch every time. It could just be that the student now qualifies for special education transportation, and we need to meet to talk about that. So we can meet about just about anything and talk about it.
So that's why I was wondering if if it was locked down for the year, if it cannot be
No.
changed or modified, but it
Absolutely
can.
not.
Okay, and so every year the process repeats itself, I guess. You have to start over. Like if I'm going from ninth grade now, 10th grade, I might need a whole different IEP. Is that?
So the IEPs and 504s are adjusted based on their annual ending date.
Okay.
So most of our students don't end the very first day of school.
Okay.
Most of our students will end at a variety of times. So you could have a student who has an ending date of October. You could have a student that has an ending date of March. What we do for our students who are transitioning from an elementary to a middle or from a middle to a high is we'll hold one of those special meetings to see if anything in that document needs to be adjusted before they go to their new school.
Okay.
Not every student needs one of those meetings,
Okay.
but some of our students do, and we hold those closer to the end of the year. But again, those are typically tweaking the document, not writing a whole new one.
Okay. Okay. And how does the district collaborate with external organizations or agencies to support students with disabilities?
So there's a couple of ways. We definitely try to be on the committees of different organizations where we can participate in those conversations. So a good example is Special Olympics. So
Okay.
we have people from my department who participate on that committee to help with the planning and those kind of things to ensure that we're participating and not just taking.
Yeah.
We also hold what we call parent nights in Aiken County. We try to do at least one in the fall and one in the spring, and we invite outside vendors to those.
Okay.
And I know that Walton Options has actually come and participated in the past. And then, I'm going to leave someone out if I try to list organizations.
Well, I appreciate you coming in today and sharing all that information with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And if any of our viewers have any questions for you about special services or about their child in particular, can you tell them how they would contact you?
Sure. So again, my name is Beth Taylor. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Special Programs for Aiken County Public School District. You can find me on the district website. The number to our office is 803-641-2428. And my email is btaylor@acpsd.net. So those letters, Aiken County Public School District. So.
All right. Is there anything else you would like to share with us before we wrap up?
I think you covered everything.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you again for coming on today and being our guest. And I know this is a real important topic for a lot of parents since kids are going back to school or just starting school for the first time. So thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this. For more information on programs and services for persons with disabilities, you can call us here at Walton Options at 706-724-6262, or you can visit our website at waltonoptions.org. To keep up with events that's going on, you can visit our website, like I said, or you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And to see what else is brewing, you can visit us or subscribe to YouTube. Bye.